welcome back to Bible Nuggets. I'm Andy Blalock, joined by Mr. Chris Hamill.
Hello again, everyone.
Good to have you as always. Remind our listeners, our theme verse is Matthew 4:4. But he answered and said, "It is written, man shall not live by bread alone, but by every word that proceedeth out of the mouth of God." Before I ask my classic question, what nugget we have, I want to remind our listeners, this is the final stretch for our season, basically, coming near the end here. I just want to remind our listeners, both on two ends, on your sake, I know you hear this all the time on YouTube, to hit like and subscribe, buy the merch, hit that and all that. But there's a reason for it. We don't ask you to like and subscribe because of the massive torrents of wealth that we get. If Mr. Hammond got a raise, double the pay, it'd still be zero.
It'd still be zero.
It'd still be zero. The reason why people ask, and a lot of people even on YouTube, content creators ask for like and subscribe, is that it helps the YouTube algorithm. It helps generate it more and get it out there more so that people can just be exposed to it in a good way. And on your end, we've actually had a lot of people, especially approach Mr. Hammond, how do I get the word out? How do I let people know? Well, it's very simple. Right below our very handsome faces right now, there's a share button. If you click on that, literally it generates a link that you can use in a text message. You can put on Facebook, Instagram, all your social media. Right. And the advantage of doing Bible Nuggets, what we've tried to do, is to make these bite-size and short. Because a lot of times you can send someone a sermon, right? Like, hey, listen to this 35, 45-minute exposition. And people are like, yeah, no, right? They're going to move on, right?
Right.
They're going to go to the next TikTok video.
They're short for a reason. Number one, I can't write very much, but secondly, it's enticing to people if they see something like 10 minutes or less.
Yes, it is. They look at that and realize, oh, this is not a massive commitment, and they hopefully get something edifying and uplifting.
And it may be a way that you can reach out to somebody who's shown just a spark of interest, but not much.
Yeah.
And get them a little bit more interested in the things of the Bible.
Yeah, amen. We encourage you to do that. And it's very easy to generate and do. And let them know, like, hey, this is only so many minutes. They'll go, oh, well, that's a little different then. So if you say, here's a sermon, So we just want to get the word out there and let you know and encourage you that. So with that out of the way, Mr. Hammond, what kind of nugget do we have today? Okay,
well, today we're going to, I guess, place this in that catch-all basket of other nuggets, okay?
Yep.
And we're going to look at a pretty familiar illustration in the Bible, and this is the Law of Sowing.
Ooh.
We see that in Matthew 13 and other places. But take a pretty in-depth dive, I guess, if you will, into the meaning that God has for us here.
Yeah, a lot of people don't know this, but our pastor actually has a pretty big green thumb. So he loves this kind of stuff, sowing and reaping and all that. And it's funny, agricultural illustrations are rife in the Bible. They're everywhere, especially in the New Testament. So where are we going to look in Scripture today?
Well, today we're going to be in the book of Galatians, if you will.
There you go.
So, Brother Andy, would you read Galatians chapter 6, verses 7 and 8?
Absolutely. Verse 7 says, "Be not deceived, God is not mocked. For whatsoever a man soweth, that shall he also reap. For he that soweth to his flesh shall of the flesh reap corruption. But he that soweth to the Spirit shall of the Spirit reap life everlasting." Okay,
so if you've been around church for any amount of time, you've probably heard a few sermons on this throughout your life.
Oh, yeah.
And this passage is almost always, associated with sowing a wicked lifestyle.
Yes.
And the passage certainly covers that, but we're going to find out later it's really not the primary emphasis, if you will, of this particular passage. But let's begin by making sure that we understand, if you will, what is this illustration of sowing and reaping?
Right. So very simply, sowing is when we put a seed into the ground, it grows, and then we harvest it. That's the sowing.
Well, that's true, but we're going to do a little bit deeper dive than that, if you will. Okay. Having grown up on a farm, which is quite an experience for a youth, okay?
Life-changing.
I learned really about the law of sowing and reaping. And the first thing to take note is that you reap what you sow.
Yeah, that's important.
If I sow corn into my field, what will it return to me?
It will be corn. So not watermelons, which is my favorite, or pumpkins. If you sow corn, you're going to reap corn. So your first point is you're going to reap the same kind of seed that you sow. So if you sow tomatoes, you're going to reap tomatoes. Absolutely. without a doubt. If you sow peppers, you reap peppers. And to change the narrative a little bit, if you sow a drunken lifestyle, guess what? You're going to reap a drunken lifestyle.
That's right. So the first law of sowing is that you reap what you sow.
Yeah.
All right, so to look at the next couple of laws, we're gonna pretend here for a minute.
that
We're
works.
gonna pretend that we put a garden out here between buildings B and C here at the church, and let's say that we go out in March, in the month of March, and we sow tomatoes. So we sow them on March 22nd, and the 23rd I'm going to come back and get my tomatoes, right?
No, absolutely not. I did think that as a kid, though. I thought that's how it works, but I was a kid. Tomatoes take normally about 90 or so days to grow, and you don't expect them in March if you just planted them in March. So you expect them maybe around June.
Okay. It's true, which really gives us, if you will, the second law of sowing. And the first law is that you reap what you sow, and the second law is that you reap later than you sow.
Yeah.
You know, if you sow a wicked lifestyle, it doesn't always catch up with you immediately.
Yeah. Yeah.
Sometimes, in fact, most times, I would say the consequences are later.
Yeah.
You don't necessarily get cirrhosis of the liver when you've had your first drink of alcohol.
No, absolutely not. If that was the case, then no one would do it, probably. No, with so much of the sinful lifestyle, almost always the consequences are later. You reap later when you sow.
That's true. So let's go back out here to our imaginary garden.
Grassy knoll.
To talk about the final law of sowing. Again, so we're out here in March, and we throw these 4 little tomato seeds into the ground, cover them up, water them, okay? We know that our first law, we're going to get tomatoes.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
And we know from our second law, we're not going to get them tomorrow.
No.
Okay, we're going to get them later. But I come back, I've sown these 4 seeds, and I come back later, like you say, 90 days or so, and now I'm going to get 4 seeds back, right?
No, not 4 tomatoes. No, definitely not. If you sow 4 tomato seeds, you're going to get a lot more than that. You're going to get a few hundred, maybe a dozen or more. And each one of them, and this is what blows my mind, in each tomato, you'll have hundreds of seeds in there.
Okay, so 4 seeds might yield hundreds of seeds.
Yes,
That's basically
pretty
what
much.
you're
Yeah,
saying.
yeah.
So it's correct. So the third law of sowing is that you reap more than you sow.
Yes. Yes. And see, that's powerful. So to recap, before we lose our listeners, number 1, you reap what you sow. Number 2, you reap later than you sow. And then, as Mr. Hammond just mentioned, you reap more than you sow.
That's right. So if you sow a little bit of sin into your life, you are going to reap it.
Yeah.
You're going to reap it later, and you're going to reap more than that little bit.
Yeah.
Because you're going to reap more than you sow.
It's very, very true. You know, Satan never shows you the consequences of sin. I remember watching Super Bowl commercials and seeing these lifestyles. Wow, they're all having fun. This looks great. But Satan doesn't show you what happens 6 months from now.
That's right.
Or what they sow. He doesn't show you how a life spent sowing sin ends in a wrecked marriage or up in a hospital or in an early grave.
That's right. But as we mentioned earlier, and I think this is important, the law of sowing that's taught here in the book of Galatians not only encompasses sowing sin, it does encompass that.
Yeah.
But it also encompasses sowing the right things or sowing to the Spirit.
Yeah.
In fact, I think it's the primary emphasis of this passage here on the law of sowing in the book of Galatians.
You mentioned that in the beginning of the video. So my question is, how do you know that this is the primary emphasis, which is sowing to the Spirit?
Okay, well, let's just read a few verses here going down. Verse 9 says this. It says, "Let us not be weary in well-doing, for in due season we shall reap if we faint not.
Yeah.
As we have therefore opportunity, let us do good unto all men, especially unto them who are of the household of faith."
Amen. I love those verses. It's powerful. And I see here that God tells us not to be weary in well-doing.
That's right.
It's important. That is sowing. It is sowing, but to the Spirit. And because he tells us that we will reap if we faint not in the Spirit.
That's right. Then verse 10, I think, really tops it off. He says, as we have therefore opportunity. Do what?
Yeah.
Do good. In other words, sow.
Yeah.
Get out there and sow when you have the opportunity to do it.
And it's a powerful thing because we think sowing and reaping is always the bad thing. You sow the wind, you'll reap the whirlwind. But there is such a thing as investing your life and your time in your heart into good, godly, and amazing things. And like you said, if you sow righteous things, you're going to reap righteous things. And they may not even be now, but there's sometimes rewards you won't know until glory.
And there'll be more.
And there'll be more than you can imagine. So that's an amazing, encouraging nugget. So appreciate that. We hope you have a wonderful day, and we'll see you next time.
God bless you now.